Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to explore JavaScript variable declarations in depth. We'll discuss the history, scope, and usage of var, let, and const in JavaScript. Alright, so first to discuss the var, let, and const in JavaScript, we need to understand what actually is scope in JavaScript. Okay, we can say like JavaScript has 4 types of scopes. Okay, number one is global scope. Variables and functions declared outside of any function or block have global scope. Okay, they are accessible from anywhere in JavaScript code, including within functions. Number second is local scope. Okay, variables declared within a function have a local scope. Okay, they are accessible only within that function where they are like initialized and are not visible outside of it. Function parameters are also locally scoped. So local scope, it's not just limited to the functions. Okay, it can be limited to anything like if block. Any block where the function is actually assigned can be used within the same block. Okay, so the third one is like the function scope. Function can access variables declared in their containing scope even after the containing function has finished executing. This behavior is called a closure as well. Okay, variables in an outer function are still accessible within inner function even after the outer function completes. Okay, so the fourth one is block scope, and it was introduced in ES6. Variables declared with let and const within a block have block scope. Okay, block scope is limited to the block enclosed within the curly braces. Hope you get the point. Okay, to start off, let's take a step back and understand where they came from. Okay, so this is the code example. You can see var has a function scope, let has a block scope, and const has block scope and is read only. Okay, now let's talk about the birth of var. Okay, back in the early days of JavaScript, before the release of ES6, okay, the primary way to declare variables was using the var keyword. Okay, it had function scope, meaning it was accessible within the entire function in which it was declared. However, it had some quirks and limitations which led to the introduction of let and const. We define JavaScript function named example with var. Okay, so inside the function, there's an if statement with a condition like if true. Within the if block, we declare a variable named function scope variable. Okay, and the value is im function scope, and we try to access it inside of the block. Okay, similar to that, and outside of the block as well. Okay, but the function scope variables are accessible outside of the block. So now the function scope variable can be accessed outside of the block. So here you can actually get a result from this line and this line as well, but you cannot get result from this line. Here it will throw up an error. Okay, because the function scope variable cannot be accessed outside of the function. Okay, it can be accessed anywhere inside of this function. Okay, can be accessed outside of this block. Why? Because it is in the same function. Okay, when we will call this thing, it will console log function scope variable 2 times. One, because it is in the same block where it was created, and once because it is outside of the block where it was created. Okay, and when you will try to console log here, it is outside of the function. You cannot access it, and it will actually throw out an error. Okay, let's try to run it and see. You can see im function scope, this line is coming from here. Im function scope, this line is coming from here, and this gives you an error. Okay, like function scope variable is not defined. Now let's talk about the power of let, which was introduced with ES6. Let brought much needed improvements in terms of scoping. You use let when you need block scoped variables for variables that you plan to reassign. Okay, the example we have like using let as it is block scoped variable. Okay, now you'll get a better understanding of like what block scope variable is. So there's a function which says like example with let. If it is true and we are just defining a variable with let, Okay, let block scope variable equals I am block scope, and here console log, it will just print block scope variable. Okay, and if you actually try to console this thing out of the block, okay, this is the block where it was actually defined. If you try to actually use it outside of this block, so it will give you an error. So that's actually what block scope variable is. Okay, you can see here it is error. Okay, like block scope variable is not defined. So if I just try to remove this line of code, and for now I'll just remove this thing as well, you see now it's working. Now let's try to embrace Const, also introduced with ES6. Const is a game changer when it comes to declaring constants. You should use const for variables that should not be reassigned, for declaring constants or values that should remain unchanged. It is important to note that, like let, const is also a block scope variable. Okay. So now let's move on to example, okay, using const variables, okay. We have declared a constant named pi and assigned it to the value of pi, 3.14159. Constants are variables that cannot be reassigned once they are assigned a value. So if I just run it, so it should actually give me this thing on the console. So you can see right over here, okay? So if you attempt to reassign pi, it will result in an error because it's actually declared with const keyword. Let's try to do this, okay, to see whether it works or not. So you see that it is giving me an error, like assignment to constant variables, it's not possible. Const is also a block scoped variable, okay? Let's just try to give you an example. If I just say const variable function, okay? If I say const and I say var equals 5, I can access this thing here, but I cannot access it outside of the block, okay? And it's actually not possible to access it here as well. So if I just try to run this code, you can see it is accessible here, but it cannot be accessed here, okay? Because const also is a block scope variable, okay? So I hope you got the point and now it's clear. That's a wrap for today's video. Understanding the history and usage of these keywords is crucial for writing clean, efficient code and acing those interviews. Thank you so much and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, have a good day. Bye.